Ukraine actually launched another offensive, and that they really turned around and they invaded into the Kursk region of Russia. Everybody saw that Ukraine was, starting to be very aggressive and start to take some Russian territory back. I think there's some speculation there on what was the true intention behind that. For example, is Ukraine trying to, capture a piece of land from Russia and in exchange that maybe they can do a swap, like, hey, Russia, you've got some of our land. Now we've got some of yours. Maybe we can do a swap. Is it to create a buffer zone? I think that's what we've heard from Zelensky himself, that he wants to create this buffer zone. What do you make of this incursion, and kind of your analysis on, has it been somewhat successful? Is it just completely, no chance at success on this? What are your thoughts on the Kursk?
When it first happened, it was really hailed in the Western press. And we're going to start to, even by accident, get into some more of this propaganda. A lot of it's self-perpetuating because it was characterized as a huge blunder for the Russian side. It has changed the dynamics of the war. It has greatly increased the morale of the Ukraine side. And now then there's a new thorn in the side of Putin that he's going to have to deal with. It could upset what's happening on the Eastern Front, all this stuff. There was no truth to that. When you look at what actually happened, there is some evidence, and I've talked to people who had direct evidence that a month before this operation took place, that this particular friend of mine from London was approached by some people who had some connection to the Russian side and said, hey, Russians are aware of something that's going on here. The Ukrainians are massing in this Sumy area right here, and it appears that they're going to make an incursion somewhere in the northern border, possibly in the Kursk Oblast. Wow. And so the Russians said, hey, instead of reinforcing the border, just according to what this guy was told a month before it happened, that the Russians are going to start demining a certain section of the border to make it easier for the Ukraine side to go into Russia, because this area, and this is what an analysis of where they have chosen to attack, has no strategic value. There's no military bases in the area. There's no land corridors or any road networks, rail networks that Russia needs to move troops back and forth. It's really of no strategic value, military value at all. Okay. So the Russians, by this account, allowed them to come in to a certain extent, and then they built a perimeter, and they literally dug trenches and other things in there to kind of contain it within a certain area. And then they just started pounding the Ukraine side. So Ukraine flooded the zone with thousands of men, hundreds of combat vehicles, and then they raced as far forward as they could to try to make as far penetrations. Some claim that the intent was to take over a nuclear power plant in the Kursk region. Right. That's quite a far way. I don't know that there was ever any serious doubt to that, because you would have to have a lot more forces than what Ukraine has allocated to this. But when you look at how much they've lost, allegedly 5,000 to 7,000 killed and at least that many wounded, and somewhere between 500 and 700 military vehicles of various types, things that you just can't replace, things that they needed in the East to have a chance to, if not stop, at least delay and slow down the Russian advance there. They took forces off of that. So now then you see, okay, well then what was the point of this? That's what people wonder. Right. Okay, aside from all the euphoria that the Western press was talking about, yeah, Russia, now they know what it's like to have war on their territory, et cetera. But when you then listen to what Zelensky says, he had an interview, I think it was about 36 hours ago, on NBC News, who went to Kiev to, I think it was Richard Engel, interviewed him, and he asked him, what is this? And he said, Zelensky said, this is a plan for victory. Now, I actually had a whole show on this where we detailed what he said on this just yesterday, actually. Right. And he said, our plan for victory, and okay, so let's just stop right there for a second, because words matter. Right. They're supposed to. So victory sounds like victory to me. If you have a plan for victory, that means somehow you're going to win. Right. And so then when he starts explaining what his plan for victory is, the first thing he says is, we want to solidify the war where it is. And it's like, okay, stopping the wars is not the same as winning. That doesn't equal the win. But then he said, well, we're not going to stay here forever. I mean, we're not going to just, hold on to all this land. We don't really need to. And then he said, but we're going to hold on to it indefinitely. This is all in the same interview now. It's not like different interviews pieced together. Then subsequently he says, but the whole purpose was to make Russia realize that they can't win and that they should negotiate. And I said, okay, a negotiation a negotiated settlement where the line is not victory. That is probably reasonable that you would try to have a negotiated settlement, but then that's weird too, because they've had plenty of chances for a negotiated settlement on terms much better than what they could get now, and
Right.
a lot less territory that they could have lost. I mean, going all the way back really into December 2021, before the war started. There was another one in Istanbul in
Right.
April, March 2022. Others throughout 2023, toward the end of 2023. And then the last one as recently as just past June, where Putin again made a pretty remarkable, specific offer for a negotiated settlement that was less good than anything else that the Ukraine side had been offered, but was still better than a military loss.
Right.
So if that was your goal, to have a negotiated settlement, you didn't need to try and penetrate into Russia, because you already had his willingness if you would make certain conditions sacrifice. If the idea on Zelensky's side was, I'm going to hurt Putin here and make him negotiate better terms than what he offered in June, then you got a real problem here, because now you're getting into some delusionary thinking, because of all these basket of capabilities I keep referring to are real. And they're not going to be mitigated away. And Russia is methodically moving to the west, picking up speed now, especially in the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's fastest it's been at any point in the war, all the way back to the initial invasion. And if you want to negotiate a settlement, embarrassing Putin like this, hitting him in the flank here, is not going to help your cause. It's not going to make Putin want to negotiate from a weaker position. It's going to make him mad.
Right.
It's going to make the Russian people mad and say, forget about this. Let's just win a victory on the ground. It's yet to be seen what's actually going to be done with that, what course of action Putin's going to choose. But the bottom line is, he can make good on that, even if it takes a long time. But as I pointed out, because of where this Eastern Front is right now, if they break through that Pokrovsk area, now then you're talking whole new ball game, because the Ukraine doesn't have additional lines of defense to fall back to. So it could get really ugly early in the next year.